Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us here today on this lovely Wednesday. My name's AJ Fagan, VP of Solaris Sales here. Very, very happy to welcome in one of our premier partners that we have, ConverSight here. We're going to talk about discovering agentic AIs for your NetSuite environment, how you can actionable insight that and do some automated actions as well here. We have two of our awesome people from the company, both Troy and Vlad. I'll let them do some introductions here in a minute. But first and foremost, wanted to give you guys a heads up of who we are if you're not familiar with Solar ERP as well. We are a premier NetSuite solution and alliance partner as well. And so what we do here is really tailor to white glove service. We're a boutique firm. I've been with the company for about a year and a half. Before I joined, I was actually a customer for a year and a half. So very familiar with what we do. We specialize in multiple different verticals, both on manufacturing and wholesale, as well as really getting into that niche markets of your healthcare, health and beauty, life sciences, and stuff like that. We do tons of integrations as well. And we're super, super proud and honored to be partnered with CoverSight here. So I will turn it over to Troy and Vlad to do a little bit of introductions and go from there.
Okay. Thanks, AJ. Appreciate it. I'm Troy Hollings. I'm obviously with ConverSight out of Indianapolis, Indiana. Really excited to talk to you all today about AI and analytics. And at a popular request, I have a fun fact that I'm forcing Vlad and AJ to also do. And so my fun fact is I married a farm girl. We live on 25 acres and we've got 3 horses, 15 goats, and an uncountable number of chickens. So, Vlad, maybe I'll kick it to you to say hey and obviously give a fun fact. Very important.
Yeah, hi everybody. Great to be here. And thank you, AJ, for having us. Um, my name is Vlad Becker. I'm based out of Boston, Massachusetts. Been with Conversa for about 3 years now, and I head up our solution consulting practice here. I actually come from the NetSuite ecosystem. Spent 3 years at NetSuite in a similar capacity before joining ConverSight. My fun fact is today we started potty training our 11-month-old, and days like this, I am really glad that Zoom has strong noise suppression technology. So you won't have to hear what I'm hearing in the background.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
I'm right there with you, Vlad, on the potty training. It's a fun journey, fun fact. Do lots of marathons. I'm actually currently about to do the October one here for St. Jude's in Chicago, so that's always a big thing. But man, I wish I could be on a farm. That sounds a lot more interesting.
Yeah, it is though. I am covered in poison ivy right now. That's what
Maybe
happens
not
on
so
the
much
farm.
then.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. That was fun. And maybe I'll take I don't know, 5 to 7 minutes to set some context of what we're going to talk about. But then, I think with these, it's as soon as you can see the tool, I'm kind of a visual person that really does help. And so maybe I know just even context of where this all fits into the conversation. Maybe if we could go back to the last slide. There's so much buzz right now about AI. You know, We've heard ChatGPT, now Claude, now the MCP connector. Do we just hook up Claude to your NetSuite data? What if NetSuite has its own chatbot? Like, how should we be thinking about all of this? And so, I think we'll try to give you some comments and thoughts just in general philosophically. But I think a few things about where we sit and what we're doing here at ConverSight. So we're really kind of the mix between BI, AI, and then supply chain. And maybe another way of thinking about that is when you work with ConverSight, you're really hiring an AI employee, and that employee is Athena, our AI agent, who can come in and give you insights, give you recommendations, and then even take actions on your behalf. And so we'll walk you through all of that. But I think as we are looking at the landscape and we're thinking every day about AI and agentic AI. I think one of the hardest problems is how do you actually get value from AI? And so prior to ConverSight, I actually spent like 8 years doing what started as data and analytics consulting. So think like Power BI, but then really morphed into, okay, well, how do we wrap our arms around the chat GPTs of the world, the data science, the machine learning? And that's actually a really hard problem because AI isn't just AI. I mean, you have When is a chat interface the right step? Maybe there's times where you don't even need AI, and some simple dashboards would be super helpful. Or if we're going to talk about kind of the demand forecasting, some of the supply chain stuff, maybe this you have a workflow that's so complicated, like do you spin off a separate app? And then, there's also obviously the question of when do you delegate a task to an agent and just say go. And so maybe if we go to the next slide here, we'll hit on all of those comments. But I think the first layer that we think about, especially if we take into account the like the MCP connector, for example. I mean, I think from our perspective, data engineering is still a super hard problem. And so, if you think about what that means, so this slide's basically just saying, we can connect and we're used to connecting to multiple different data sources. We've built data models for over 150 different systems. But what that means is, I think we recognize that, if you have an AI agent, if you have even, analytics, you probably aren't going to want that just in one specific system. You might want to pull in your CRM data. You might want to pull in your, obviously your ERP data. Maybe there's stuff that's living in a WMS or living in, in an Excel sheet. And, I think pulling all of that, being able to get that unified picture, that's part of this kind of conversation as well. It's not as much just plug in AI as opposed to how do you map the workflow, map the universe of the data sources, and then really get the benefit from AI. Maybe we'll go to the next slide here. So we'll talk through this, but I think one of the things I just wanted to, kind of be clear on is, from a ConverSight perspective, we've been around 7 years. We have 700 plus customers, but we're really not trying to compete with like a Claude or a ChatGPT. We're not trying to solve all the problems of the world or under the sun. What we're really trying to do is, we have found a few specific core problems in the market that we've seen NetSuite users have, and we've built a platform and AI and analytics around those. And so that's what we're hoping to go over today. Hit some of the wave tops, but on that top row. I think supply chain is often very challenging. Maybe you start with kind of the demand forecast, or you say, okay, well, what are we expecting to come in? And that could be a combination of maybe a weighted pipeline and things you're stocking, and how do you imbue intelligence in that? And then maybe if we get down a level, even sometimes just having visibility of, okay, well, what's out there, what's coming in, but then also like how do we route this most effectively? How can we use AI to manage our supply chain better? And then on the right side, kind of the supply planning side is, okay, given all of that, given our existing inventory, given what we expect the demand is coming, given the seasonality, like what should we actually be buying? And so, I think rather than just some blanket, AI here, I think what we're really finding is people don't really care how you solve the problem as long as the problems are solved. And so those are the kind of supply chain problems that we play into. And then below that, I think sales and finance analytics. It's amazing how many times when we're working with NetSuite folks, even just the concept of saved searches. Hey, I want to be able to pull this data. I want to pull that data. That's still a point of pain. So we'll show you that, as well as really touch on the wave tops maybe of construction. Though I think we're really trying to focus and be more focused on those top three, and then the sales and finance. So next slide, please. All I'm going to say about this is, what we're really trying to do here is not, we don't want a customer to have 10 different tools. We're trying to pull all of this into one platform so you can really get the benefit of some of this technology without having to have this tool over here, this tool over here, this tool over here. I think these next two slides, and we'll kick it to Vlad for the demo. I just wanted to comment on the the landscape that we see. So, I think when everybody thinks of AI, I think everybody thinks of something a little bit different. It started out with the ChatGPT, which is, people are really almost using just like a Google. Hey, what's my top five customers? Let me ask you some quick questions. And so that's on the left side. I think there's a portion of customers that we're seeing that are really starting to integrate AI into this demand and supply planning side. And then where everything's going that, from our perspective is, eventually AI is going to be part of your workforce. And how does that change your flows? How does that change your security? How should you be thinking about that? So that's kind of the philosophical what we're going to talk about. I would say next slide, and then we'll kick it to my buddy Vlad. There's tons of ways that we see agentic AI in supply chain. We'll give you all this slide deck, but I think this isn't designed to be a deep dive training session. This is more of almost just reporting back from the front. What do we see in some of this kind of combination between ERP, AI, and then in that supply chain side specifically? So I think with that, I will kick it to Vlad. And the reason you guys are all here, let's talk about ConverSight and actually show the platform.
Yep, and I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, team, and just Troy, AJ, just confirm for me that you can actually see my screen.
Just thinking about it. Yep, looking
Good
good.
to go.
Beautiful. Yeah, so we're gonna give you guys a lay of the land of ConverSight and some of the Athena agentic AI capabilities as it specifically relates to the supply chain use cases that Troy mentioned, right? Um, so when we talk about ConverSight, and Troy really hit on this, right? We really specialize in not just bringing in a singular source of data, right, like a NetSuite, but it's really taking that NetSuite data, augmenting it for you guys, but also layering in some additional nuanced data around potential Excel files you might have, CRM data that can help intelligently drive a forecast for us, WMS data, or even POS data. All of those systems can be brought in, tied together with your NetSuite ERP data, and having that kind of end-to-end visibility and unified platform really makes the system a lot more intelligent and being able to drive recommendations and what can potentially happen in your business next that you need to be aware of. So how do we actually do that, right? We do that through a variety of different modules here. And what we're looking at is the first one, which is called our Insights page. Insights provides this Twitter-like news feed of what's going on in your business, right? So every day when you log in, this is what you're going to see, and it's going to really start bubbling up these automated and proactive insights or any sort of exception reporting, any sort of trends in your business that we need to be aware of. And these are going to be persona driven, right? So we're really tailoring these insights based on who the user is. Are they, a warehouse associate who's going to care about on time and in full rates, and are we seeing potential drop-offs in that KPI within our business? Or are we a buyer that wants to know, hey, these are the critical items that are stocking out this week, and you need to place orders now, right? So this is where these insights really shine, is being able to allow users to quickly and efficiently extract that information without having to rely on reporting or safe searches to pull that information, or other folks in the organization who's compiling and providing those summaries for us. So that's step one, right? And these insights are a great starting place to really understand, what do I need to prioritize today, right? But then we have a few other areas that we're going to explore, right? We have our storyboards, which is our analytics layer. We have Explorer that helps us replace some of that safe search capability that I'll touch on. But what I want to focus on next is our Agentic AI Athena. And when we open up Athena, and you might have missed it, I clicked in the bottom right-hand corner here. Athena is going to be available on any page we are within ConverSight. And the reason for that is because it literally allows you to start interacting with your data depending on where you are in the platform. So maybe, um, maybe you're a demand planner and you're evaluating demand performance and you have a question around your demand data, right? Um, you can come in and simply use natural language the same way you would expect with other generative AI tools to come in and say, show me my top customers by revenue for the last 3 months. And what Athena's doing is, she's evaluating those different data points. She's querying up that data for us and gonna respond back with an analysis of those top customers across those time periods that we've identified. Now I can take that a step further, right? And before I do, you might notice that on the right-hand side here, Athena's actually doing the analysis for us as well, right? So that agentic AI capability is reviewing the data that we're pulling in. And it's about 300 rows of data that we're seeing here. And she's summarizing that for us. So we don't have to go in and pivot the data, do our own analysis. We're getting the talking points by the agent. So it's really allowing us to um, have that assistant, that analyst really sitting side by side with us as we're interacting with our data on a day-to-day basis. Now, there's also a contextual aspect to this as well, right? We can start asking additional questions off of this data. Can you show me what these customers are buying? Now, as I'm planning for, future demand, right? These are the kind of questions I'm starting to ask about. You know, what are my top customers buying? What items are really driving those sales, and how do I want to plan for those sales go forward, right? And I can start diving in even further. What's my demand currently planned for the rest of the year? And as we're seeing, right, as we go through this flow, we can get really deep into the data and have Athena really start providing us those insights to start really making decisions around what's happening in the business, what do I need to plan for, and how do I potentially want to reallocate my assets to meet these demand drivers. Now, besides Athena, we also have some functionality here that I touched on around storyboards, right? So this is where we're really able to see and validate some of that information that Athena is telling us about, right? I was asking about demand signals and demand drivers, right? We can now come in and see all the different storyboards that um, um, have been created and come out of the box with ConverSight to help intelligently drive our actions around these different use cases we're tackling. And as we know, when it comes to inventory optimization, it's really critical for us to be able to start having more intelligent and more robust forecasting. And the way we tackle that is through our machine learning algorithms. So here, what we're seeing is the system actually has generated a forecast for us, and there's also a AI narratives component where the agentic AI is also telling us what are those drivers of the forecast, what products are really going to be the thing that we must hit on in order for us to achieve our service levels and our volumes that we're anticipating. Are there potential risks in our forecast, right, based on recent trends? We can start extracting all that information right from the storyboard as we're evaluating that AI generated forecast. And let's dive a little bit deeper into that, right? So through our Launchpad, we also have a few different applications that help drive this inventory optimization use case. Demand forecasting is um, the demand forecasting app allows us to really start creating different scenarios, different simulations of our forecast across different segments, right? So we can start generating forecasts across customers, across classes and categories, or even perhaps across regions and customers. So we can go up and down the segment list and the hierarchy to forecast on all sorts of different levels. What we're looking at here is a sample forecast that we just ran for our specific finished goods. Now, when we're looking at our forecasting methodology, it all really starts with the data, right? So we like to bring in 2 years worth of historical data. And the reason for that is because it gives us a really good sample size of the different trends we can anticipate. The reason for that is because our models are looking at things like seasonality trends, outlier orders, potential gaps in sales history. And based on those different data points, the system is actually assigning what is the best model we need to use for that specific item. So this is a little bit different than how a NetSuite might approach it, right? We're typically only able to apply a linear regression model or, simple moving average model to the full breadth of items that we're planning for, right? We're getting a little bit more nuanced here. If we take a step back here and actually look at the different models that are being utilized, there's about 8 of them that are tracking those different data points, looking at those different spikes and valleys in your data, and determining what is the best model that's going to yield the highest accuracy rate for that specific item. But of course, right, when we actually see the output of what the AI suggests, we might, as users and as people deep into the business and have an intimate knowledge of the business, might have other thoughts, right? And that's where we can start using some of our tribal knowledge to be able to come in and say, you know what? We're actually planning for a promotion in May, and I think we're going to be able to yield about a 5% growth from what the model is telling us, right? So we're able to come in and actually make adjustments to that forecast based on what we know about the business. And nobody knows about your business better than you do, right? And no AI is going to be able to, um, um, be a mind reader or project, in conversations and internal objectives that you've set, right? So that's where we are able to uh, use that AI as the foundation and help augment our decisions based on what we intimately know about the business. And from there, of course, we can go ahead and save that forecast. We can then productionalize that forecast and publish it, and that can become the go forward plan for what we can reasonably expect the business to do. Now, how do we evaluate the performance of these forecasts, right? That really becomes a critical step in this process as well. So, whenever we're forecasting for our product mix, we also want to know how did actuals transpire, right? And what kind of decisions do I need to make based on um, where we potentially underperformed or overperformed, right? If a forecast said one thing and all of a sudden we saw a massive spike in a certain SKU, and we're not ahead of that and we're not playing for that go forward, then we want to potentially get into a stock out position. Whereas if we miss the mark on a forecast and undersold, then we're potentially gonna be in an overstock position if we're not ebbing and flowing with what's actually happening in the business. So that's where we're also providing views through our dashboards to help analyze what do we plan for, what's actually happened, right? And how has that actually impacted our product sell-through, our forecast performance, what items potentially oversold, and how does that break down across items and product classes, and vice versa, which products undersold. So we're able to see KPIs and deep dive into the reports to be able to start analyzing that performance as well. And that's really critical, right? We never want to black box what's happening with the forecast, how things are potentially transpiring. We want to really enable the user to be able to start predicting and making their own predictions with the augmentation layer that the AI also provides. Now, as we go further down and we feel really good about our forecast, right? The next layers are our supply plans, right? How do we actually start predicting where we have shortages in our business that we need to account for based on our forecast? And to do so, maybe I want to, ask a question of Athena around that. So I can go back into Athena and, we have a really good pulse on our forecast so far. So maybe I want to ask, um, can you show me what products have shortages based on our forecast? Now, what Athena's going to do is she's actually going to generate a query for us taking a variety of different data points, everything from inventory to the forecast to on-hand positions, inbound positions, and she's going to be able to tell us where do we potentially have shortages in our business, right? So as a buyer that's now acting on that forecast that the planner has created, I'm able to see, okay, are there potential items that I need to start really focusing on and planning for based on where we're forecasting? Clearly, there's a high disconnect between our available quantity and the forecasted quantity for this heavy duty conduit, right? So I probably want to start talking to some vendors and be able to get some POs in the water or on trucks as soon as possible. But on top of that, right, we've also created a workbench for us to be able to start evaluating that too, right? So as a buyer, I can come in and in our supply planning module, I can see some PO recommendations where the system does all the heavy lifting for us and layers in a variety of other metrics and inputs. The key one being supplier performance metrics, right? So when we feel really good about our forecast. We feel really good about, our visibility into our inventory, both, what's in our warehouse, what's coming through our dock doors, what's potentially on trucks heading to our customers. But we also need to understand if we were to place these POs, how would our suppliers perform, right? How would they act? And things like on time and in full percentages from our vendors, lead time metrics from our vendors become really paramount in any of our buying decisions. An example of that, right, is is on the storyboard. We see this recommendation for um, all the different products that we need to buy where we potentially have shortages, right? So this report is telling us, okay, so if we don't take any action, right, we potentially have some major stock out events. But if we do want to make that order, this is how much we actually need to place and by what date. Now, what if we had a vendor that historically sends us products every, with a 4 week lead time? But over the past couple of months, given the supply chain disruptions that we see, what it seems like on a monthly basis at this point, what if they're now actually sending us products every, with 8 week lead times? The system needs to pick up on those trends. And what we're doing is we're dynamically tracking lead time performance and establishing, okay, maybe your supplier historically has delivered in 4 weeks, but since it's 8 weeks now, we need to recommend that you buy this product sooner at larger quantities to A, make sure that goods are arriving just in time, but also we have enough quantity to cover those longer tails and those longer lead times. And that's where supplier performance metrics really come into play. And that's really another highlight of how this agentic AI really simplifies our day-to-day task. I remember when I used to be a buyer, you're typically looking through, half a dozen different screens. Maybe you're evaluating which supplier I want to buy this product with, which supplier is going to give me the lowest cost. Excuse me. Which supplier is going to provide me uh, these goods the quickest, right? Do I actually want to buy this product or, are sales slowing down? You're doing a ton of evaluation and computation on your own, analyzing different data points. The AI is doing all that for you. It's looking through thousands of data points, doing the calculations for you, and actually combining all that information in one place for you to be able to digest and quickly react to.
And Vlad, maybe while I see you're needing to take a drink, I'll jump in. But
Thank you.
if we're going back to the general concept of should we build our own agents, should we work with a platform like ConverSight, I think about all of the layers that Vlad just outlined of the logic we've built in, being able to understand and weight all of that. I mean, I don't want to say anything negative about Claude. It's my top used bookmark. I use it every single day. But when you get to the ROI of do you really want to try to go and if this is a specific problem you have, that's the key part. Like, what's the likelihood that you could go and kind of build this from the ground up versus kind of using some of the economies of scale that we have. So just trying to add kind of again in that context of the larger conversation. I gave you enough time, Vlad. It's like you're chirping
Yeah,
over
yeah,
there.
thank you.
Okay, cool.
I was hoping somebody was going to jump in and give me a moment
Yeah.
to just cough that out.
Well, no, I mean, and you hit too, which is a great feature of being a buyer or anybody in that position, right? You just cut my day down significantly, right? Or the need to go and spend so much time into the system over and over and over again, looking at all the POs, looking at, to your point, the vendor, analysis, right? And like, hey, who can actually get me my product? It's one thing to cut a, PO and have it be wishful, right? It's the need that your tool can go ahead and show that, hey, they've actually, delivered on X, Y, and Z in this time frame, and this is where you need to go. Yeah, I mean I haven't seen a tool like that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, like I mentioned, I used to be a buyer for, a major distributor, and retail organization, and you know, my week consisted of doing this analysis and spending a ton of time in Excel, try and combine data, use VLOOKUPs and index matches. Uh, and only by Thursday was I able to confidently place POs, right? Well, now we're delaying days that the vendor can actually react and send product back, right? And we're hearing consistently from customers that their buying decisions are cut down to a couple of hours instead of days, and you know the 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 cost savings alone from that, from just your time investment, but also not delaying the flow of goods into your buildings. I mean,
Hmm.
it's hard to quantify that, right? But
Yeah.
it's exponential for sure.
And I think it gives them a leg up too, right? They can send a kind of snapshot of that to certain vendors and say, hey, kind of a performance review almost, and this
Yeah.
is where your
You know what?
analytics are.
That's a great point, AJ, right? So any of these storyboards that we've developed, right? And you can create as many of your own storyboards as you'd like. You can actually take these storyboards and schedule them out to be sent to various folks, right? Whether they're internal users or whether they're external users, granted, as long as you have the permissions in the platform to do so. We have customers that are uh, sending their demand plans to their top vendors. Hey, this is going to be coming down the pipeline for me. You should start preparing for me to potentially place this order, 2, 3 weeks down the line, right?
Hmm.
And update them on our demand trends on a weekly basis. Really allows us to start breaking down silos and have that free flow of information and collaboration while utilizing this agentic AI capability.
Yeah. It's using, AI as actually, a tool, right? And not just anything else and replacing or whatever. You're truly, making that job for a buyer more efficient, right? And more efficient throughout the entire company process. So that the scheduling of the reports is really, really good.
Yeah. The name of the game is how do we stay efficient? How do we save
Absolutely.
labor hours? How do we reduce costs and increase revenue, right? And that's what Agentic AI is used for. Um, it's great to type into Claude and create a nice visual, right? But what actions are we actually going to take off of these recommendations? And that's where the agentic piece really comes into play.
Absolutely.
Now, we saw those recommendations for those purchase orders, right? How do we actually act on them, right? So if we go into our supply planning app, We have a full list of our SKUs. We can start really segmenting this across our different suppliers. And the system is actually now providing us with a primary action. What do I need to do to make sure that this product is on our shelves at the right time? We're seeing, certain products where demand is low, or, certain products where we are within the order limits, but, can potentially hold off on actually writing a PO for now. But if we sort for the primary action critical stock out, these are the products that are gonna be on they're gonna be low or missing from our shelves altogether if we don't actually go and create a PO with our vendors now, right? So we can come in, select the different items that we want to purchase. We have all the information at our disposal here. What's on hand, what's potentially in transit, what are those expected lead times and calculated safety stocks that we have. What's that average daily demand, right? We are now seeing how that forecast we talked about at the beginning is getting weaved into the process to help inform this decision as well. We're not relying on multiple different screens, disparate systems. It's all in one place for us to start being able to make a decision. And once we feel really good about what we've actually want to buy this week, we can go ahead, review that further. Maybe we want to make some sort of adjustments and say, hey, you know what? I actually want to buy for a little bit of a higher coverage window. So let me make some adjustments to these quantities. And once I feel good about, I can actually go ahead and create a purchase order, which is going to write back that transaction into NetSuite. And the beauty of that, right, is we're not taking this information and then going into NetSuite, manually creating a purchase order form, right? That's all being automated for us. Going to a hold status and then following that NetSuite approval workflow that we have established. So, you know, not only are we saving time in deciding what to buy, but the actual creation of these POs becomes seconds instead of the manually punching in that information into an order form.
And I think the only thing I'll maybe add to this is, we are in this example writing into NetSuite, but it's governed in your existing approval layer. It's not going to just auto create. I think when I think about the risk and the fear of, like plugging in like an open claw, or, some sort of an agent directly into NetSuite, you can come in and you can edit the underlying tables and fields, but the risk is you go, imagine you have a crazy weekend, you go, you added it all in, now you're edited a bunch of stuff. How do you unpack that? The audit trail, how, I think, and AJ, feel free to jump in, but I think the messaging from like a NetSuite is, hey, you can do that. We've given you the MCP connector, the bridge to do that. But there's a little bit of it's kind of like your iPhone, where if you go in and you tinker around with the battery and you try to get it serviced, you've almost voided the warranty a little bit. So, we're SOC 1, SOC 2 compliant. This is inside of your existing security and governance versus, an external directly editing your production data in a non-secure way. But I saw you nodding, AJ. Anything you would want to add there?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on it significantly, Troy, right? I mean, that's a huge thing. That's, we're talking about it in the NetSuite user groups. We're talking in different spaces, and you hear it, in all these different conversations, right? But it is true. As soon as you leave that platform and you leave Oracle, right? You had a great analogy of the warranty thing, right? It really does remove that level of security. And if you're doing all these different users and you're connecting into Claude, you're connecting into ChatGPT, and you're doing these things, you open up a question, right, for your business that I don't think really a lot of people focus and ask to themselves, right? And it's okay, I'm going to pump my data out to a third party. What is going to happen with that, right? With y'all's tool, you don't have to have that kind of question. It's all in here. It's all under, one umbrella. Whereas, you go out and you pump it into Claude, you pump it into chat. Next thing there's a lot of vendor and data here, right? That's proprietary that you guys are able to automate and do everything in here. You're at risk, right? And so that's something to highly consider if if there's people who are watching this and joining us that are considering any kind of one of these tools. you do not have that risk of a security, right? And that's something that's a huge differentiator, I think, from you guys and MCP or any one of those.
Yeah, spot on. And the only thing I'll add to that as well, right? We've been doing this for years, right? We've been doing this even
Yeah.
before, ChatGPT came out. Um, feels like forever ago, but it was only, 4 or 5 years ago, right? Because of that, we've been able to really refine this process and make sure it is secure. We identified, our founders identified early on that, with these advancements in AI and agentic AI, data security is going to be paramount. So the whole system has been built out with that in mind, and that's one of the reasons that we have been able to get some really critical compliance certifications around data security. So we are SOC 1, SOC 2 compliant, which, if anyone's familiar with those processes, very stringent and um, um, robust evaluations for data security. And every single year, we're passing with flying colors on how that certification. So the last few pieces I want to touch on, right? We talked about that inventory optimization workflow, starting with, supply chain visibility, establishing a demand plan, actually, acting on a demand plan and making sure that we're replenishing the product that we need to meet those demand signals that we're anticipating. But we also have modules around sales and finance analytics, right? So as we talk about, revenue operations or, controllers and CFOs in the organization, being able to provide snapshots and visibility around what's going on from a um, 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 finance standpoint, how our margins and profitability tracking, are there potentially significant um, drivers that are causing margin erosion, and then being able to drill into those aspects across, items, customers, variety of different segments in order to provide that visibility into, what's really happening from you know, top line health of the business at a 30,000 foot view. But then also being able to dive into the nitty gritty, right? So being able to go in and see a P&L across different segments. And then, of course, the agentic AI and the AI narratives telling us the story around what's happening in that P&L, right? What's potentially causing certain asset accounts or certain um, accounts driving expenses, right? And driving cost of goods sold. So really being able to start layering in that agentic AI capabilities around our financial reporting and around our financial metrics as well. Now, the last piece I want to touch on, and the reason I want to save this for last, is because this is really where we're able to come in and be a true replacement for a NetSuite Safe Search, right? So our Explorer functionality allows us to come in and go into the different tables we're pulling in from NetSuite and actually start developing and creating robust reports without having to rely on any sort of technical expertise or um, um, the nuances that are required for building, successful safe searches. So in our Explorer report builder, I'm able to come in and build on some of that capability that Athena provides us, but then really start identifying what is all the data that's really available to me and how am I able to start combining it. So maybe I want to come in and pull a customer report. So I'm going to click on that field. Maybe I want to see, across these customers based on the invoice date, what has been the sales? What's been the, items that they've been buying? Uh, is there maybe a quantity field that I want to pull in, right? And now I can start looking, okay, I want to see this for the last, let's say 180 days, right? And I want to see this broken down by month. So I'm able to really quickly just select the different fields that I want to combine for these reports and run them through this report builder. And again, Athena is doing the heavy lifting of actually combining those different tables together, referencing the correct fields, and start generating these types of queries for us on the fly. And maybe we don't want to see this in, this type of flat tabular format. Well, with a click of a button, we can now see a pivot view of this data, right? Perhaps we prefer a more visual approach. Probably not going to be the best approach for this type of data where we're seeing, so many different data points and, dimensions and metrics. But nonetheless, you have the ability to pull any of the data that we're pulling in into a visual or chart or a graph, and then of course create a storyboard off of that. Um, so once we create that storyboard, this asset now gets um, updated every single time a new data pull comes through from NetSuite, which is every single day. This is going to be updated, and we don't have to rely on uh, you know data dumps into Excel. Again, looking through VLOOKUPs and combining data. That's really done for us within the storyboards, and we have that end-to-end visibility in real time. So with that, I'd love to kick it back over to Troy, unless Troy and AJ, you think that the audience would benefit from
Yeah, I think
something
we
else.
got just a couple questions. Maybe I'll throw out here, and then we can close this down. So, one of the questions is, how long does it take to get up and running? What's the implementation like? I don't know if you want to just comment on that, Vlad.
Yeah, so we can tie into your NetSuite data and provide you Athena and Explore, the ability to start really analyzing that data and interacting with it in a natural language format within a week or two, right? Now, when we talk about demand forecasting, supply planning, each business is going to have its own nuances that we need to account for, and implementing those solutions can last anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks, right? Just because we do need to account for, what kind of vendor minimums are you working with? Are there certain terms that you establish with your vendors? Are you segmenting, across regions, customers, and items? There's nuances that need to be taken into account and configured in the platform. But we're not seeing implementations last longer than 3 months.
Got it. Maybe two more that we've got here. Maybe I'll take a crack at this one. Can I restrict data access? I have members of the team who would benefit from this platform, but I want to restrict what they can see. And so, short answer is yes. We have a data governance layer, and what that basically means is it could be tied to your Office 365 license, could be, tied to your NetSuite user groups, how you have that set up. But you can segment by individual, you can segment by role, but the net is, if I'm a buyer and there are specific things that the company wants me to see and me alone to see, I can handle that. No problem. I'm not going to see things I shouldn't. And in the same way, let's say I'm the CFO, maybe I could see everything. And so we can come in and map that. Not a problem. How'd I do, Vlad? Reasonable? Anything you'd add?
Perfect.
Okay, cool. Last question, and then we'll get this on the way. And thanks again, guys, for everybody joining here. Is custom fields. So we have a lot of custom fields. These are critical to how we report within NetSuite. Can the system read these as well? I don't know, Vlad, if you want to talk about that, because I think there's like the global concept of custom fields, there's calculated fields, like any thoughts on that, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, part of us being able to bring your data in so quickly is because we have an established data model, right? And we know exactly what tables, what fields need to be hit for uh, um, um, these analytics and agents to do their job, right? But that doesn't mean that it has to stay static, right? So as long as that field or custom field is in NetSuite, we can bring that in. We can hit that and join that with the rest of the model. It's just about having a conversation and determining, right, what's important to you and how does that flow within your daily workflow.
Got it. Okay. Well, we made it. Thank you, everybody. That was the Q&A. Maybe if we go to that last slide here, the only thing I'll just throw out is so we'd love the opportunity to work with anybody on here that's interested. through the end of the month, we're actually offering a completely free implementation. All that said, though, I mean, if you're sitting there and you say, well, parts of this apply, parts of this I have questions, let's just set up a conversation. Very happy to chat, quick 30-minute call. We'd love to share a little bit more, understand what you're looking to do. And then, if we think we can be helpful, we'll tell you. And if we think we can't, we'll tell you that as well. So that's a QR code to book a meeting, but you'll have our contact info. We'll send this out. And just thanks again. Really, really do appreciate it, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this. Really, really appreciate this partnership. Amazing tool. And we couldn't be happier having you guys be in our ecosystem to offer to our clients.
Okay. With that, I think any final thoughts, Vlad, and then maybe we'll end this thing.
No, appreciate everyone's time. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank
Well,
you
thanks,
guys so
team.
much.
Appreciate it.
Bye bye.